Welcome to our Let's Learn channel. Today we are going to see about heat. Heat is a form of energy. We know very well that the degree of hotness or coldness is given by temperature. Hence we can say that heat is the cause of temperature and the temperature is the cause of effect. And also, we know that the heat is commonly experienced by everyone easily, like how the weight of an object feels. So, everyone can experience heat very easily. And also, we can say that heat can be measured in the terms of the effects it produces. So, next, we can say that the units of heat energy. The rise in temperature of water depends on the quantity of heat given to water. So we can say the unit of heat in CGS system is nothing but calorie. 1 calorie is the quantity of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water through 1 degree Celsius. And also we know very well James Prescott Joule performed a series of experiments to prove conveniently that the heat is also a form of energy. Just he wants to prove that the heat is also a form of energy, so that he proved the amount of work disappears. There the definite quantity of heat is produced. So he established a relationship between work and heat energy. We know very well that the equation is nothing but W is equal to J into H. So we know very well that the J is nothing but mechanical equivalent of heat and H is nothing but heat energy. So the SI unit of work also we know well, that is joule. So also we know very well that the 1 joule is the quantity of heat energy required to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of water through Kelvin. So the relation of a joule and calorie is nothing but 1 calorie is equal to 4.186 joule. So this is a basic value we should remember. Next, now thermal capacity. Just consider the thermal capacity of a substance is the quantity of heat required to raise the temperature of the substance through 1 Kelvin is nothing but the thermal capacity. So, just consider mass of a body and its specific quantity heat. Mass of the body denoted by small m, we know very well, and newly we are going to see about specific heat denoted by small s. So then its thermal capacity is nothing but product of mass of a body and specific heat, which means joule per Kelvin. So that we can say that it shows the different substances of the same mass will have different thermal capacities because of their different specific heats. How I'm telling means, let's see one example. See here we are considering a source like a sun. Here it is rock, and here we are considering water of same mass. So take a stone and water of same mass, place them in a hot sun for an half an hour. Just touch the stone with one hand and water with the other hand. There you can observe that the stone is hotter than water. So that I can say that the heat capacities are different for different substances. That is nothing but thermal capacity. So this is the best example to show that what is the thermal capacity. Specific heat capacity. Through the above activity, it shows that the heat capacity depends upon the nature of the substances. Different substances of same mass also can have different heat capacities. How means this is due to their specific heat capacity. That means when equal masses of different substances are heated to the same range of temperature, they absorb different amounts of heat. So this is due to their specific heat capacity. And the specific capacity of a substance is nothing but the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 kg of the substance through 1 Kelvin is nothing but specific heat capacity. And the unit of specific heat in the SI system is nothing but joule per kilogram per Kelvin. Also consider another thing. If a substance absorbs heat like rock, its temperature getting increased, and when it is cooled down, it gives out the heat. Therefore, the quantity of heat, which means the amount of heat required, which means Q, whether it is absorbed or evolved, is nothing but mass into specific heat into change in temperature, which means Q is equal to M into S into T. Unit for this, joule. So, specific heat of substances. Yes, if you consider aluminium, its specific heat is 913. For alcohol, it is 2520. For lead, it is 126. For copper, it is 385. For water, it is 4185. So these are all the different solids and liquids having different specific heat capacities. So next we are going to see about problem. Just here, calculate the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 100 gram of copper from 30 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius. Specific heat capacity of copper, we know very well, that is 384 joule per kg per Kelvin. So we know very well that the formula is nothing but Q is equal to mass into specific heat into change in temperature. So change in temperature, we know very well that is nothing but 40 degrees Celsius minus 30 degrees Celsius is nothing but 10 degrees Celsius. Also we can write that is 10 K. So next we know very well the specific heat capacity of copper is nothing but S, 385 joule per kg per K. And also we know very well it is the mass of the copper. Here they gave 100 kg. Here in a unit we know very well that is in the form of kg. So we just convert the gram into a kg. That's what here I'm putting a 0.1 kg. So simply you just multiply it here. K and K will get cancelled and kg will get cancelled. Simply we are getting joule. So for the specific heat capacity of copper, it is nothing but 385 joule per kg per K. There we are calculating the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 100 gram of copper. So here the answer is 385 joule, the quantity of heat gained. So next, change of states, solid, liquid, gas, which means a matter exists in three forms, which is nothing but we know very well that is solid, liquid and gas. Let's see. The process of converting a substance from one state to another state is known as change of state. So just consider an example. The change of state from a solid to liquid is called melting or fusion. So which means the temperature at which a solid melts is called melting point. And next we should know about boiling and boiling point, which means the state of change from a liquid into its vapor is called vaporization or boiling. So the temperature at which a liquid changes into vapor is nothing but boiling point. Also we should know about what is condensation and freezing. Freezing is nothing but also known as solidification. The change of state from liquid to solid is nothing but freezing or solidification. Like if you place the water in a freezer means it becomes ice cube, right? So which is the best example. So reverse process or change of vapor into a liquid is nothing but condensation. So next we are going to see about what is sublimation. So Sublimation is nothing but the process of a solid changing into a gas without becoming a liquid is nothing but sublimation. We can easily consider an example, camphor. So the direct change of vapor into solid is nothing but condensation. Okay, what about the evaporation? The state of change from liquid into water at all temperatures of the liquid is nothing but evaporation. Is that evaporation and boiling is same? No, that is totally different. Actually, boiling is a rapid visible process, but evaporation is a slow invisible process. Evaporation produces cooling effect, but boiling does not produce any cooling. Actually, evaporation plays at all temperatures, but boiling plays at a particular temperature like boiling point. So next we should know melting point wax. That means we are going to see about one experimental setup part. So its principle is nothing but the melting point of a solid is the constant temperature at which a solid is converted into liquid at normal temperature. Here we are considering experimental setup. There a thermometer is placed and boiling tube also there. It stand with a lamp. It's a beaker with water and a candle wax, wire gas, tripod stand, and Bunsen burner. Everything we are considering here. So here the test tube is with sufficient quantity of wax is taken, and the thermometer also placed there, and it is then placed in the water beaker which is containing water. Actually, water is heated till the wax in the test tube melts and gets converted completely into liquid state, and also then heating is stopped and wax is allowed to cool. There the temperature of the wax is continuously noting. So for 1 minute or 2 minutes. So until it falls to 30 degrees Celsius. Also we can consider room temperature. So here we can say one graph for time and temperature. For between here consider x and y axis. Temperature consists y axis and time consists in x axis. Here the temperature corresponding to the horizontal line in the graph gives the melting point of wax, which means here this is the melting point of the wax. Here this is a constant value we can say. Here I've shown without number, so I'll tell you the value. And at this temperature the liquid wax is converted solid without the change of temperature, which
Which
means
means
the boiling
melting
point of
point of
wax
wax
is
is
57 degree Celsius. So when the liquid wax changes into a solid, its volume also decreases. So which is nothing but the melting point of wax experimental setup. This is very simple one. And also we should know next boiling point. Before we learned about a boiling point, we should know that what is a boiling? The process in which a substance in its liquid state gets converted into vapor state is nothing but boiling. So the constant temperature at which a liquid is converted into its vapor state is nothing but boiling point. Here I placed a simple experimental method, and here water is boiling and temperature also placed here, and also here a stirrer. This is a stand to hold a thermometer, and we are just taking some water to boil, and they also fix the thermometer. There the boiling tube is heated then through the burner. So the mercury in the thermometer rises and remains constant the temperature at 100 degree Celsius. This constant temperature is known as boiling point of water. So this is a basic experiment. We know very well that the boiling point of water is nothing but 100 degree Celsius. So this is a basic experimental setup. Kelvin and Celsius temperature. Here I shown one Celsius and a Kelvin scale. This is a Celsius scale and this is a Kelvin scale. See, at Celsius, it begins with a minus 273, and in Kelvin, it begins with 0. So, in Celsius, if it is 0 means here it is nothing but 273 Kelvin. In 100 Celsius, it is nothing but 373 Kelvin. So we should remember this form, otherwise we can easily solve the problems. So if a substance is cooled continuously means its temperature decreasing. So, but there is a limit to the lowest temperature, right, to which a substance can be cooled. So the lowest possible temperature taken as a 0 point of the Kelvin scale, as I told here, but in Celsius, we can say that it is minus 273 degree Celsius. So in Kelvin, we can say, right, 0 Kelvin. Here we can write that is minus 273 degree Celsius. So at absolute zero, there is no molecular motion and hence no heat energy in the substance. So at absolute zero, all atomic and molecular motion get stopped. So absolute zero is the lowest temperature possible, denoted by 0 K or minus 273 degrees Celsius. We can express in both ways. If you want to express in Kelvin means you can. Otherwise you can also express in Celsius. No, if you want in Celsius means we should remember that it begins with minus 273 degrees Celsius. Otherwise it is Kelvin begins with 0. So this is no problem. So all objects at all temperature above absolute zero emit thermal or heat energy. So also we should know that another formula, that means Kelvin scale is nothing but Celsius scale plus 273. If you want to measure the Kelvin scale means, which is nothing but Celsius scale at 0, we can say that 0 is nothing but with positive value of 273, right? So you can say that is degree Celsius or Celsius scale plus 273. If you want to measure Celsius scale means, we can say that is Kelvin scale, which means K minus 273, because it maintains 273 at 0 Kelvin. In Celsius it is minus 273. That's what we are putting, that Kelvin is equal to degree Celsius plus 273. In Celsius scale, Kelvin scale minus 273. So this is the basic things we should know. If the temperature expressed in Kelvin means, degree symbol is omitted. No need to put degree if you want to express in Kelvin form. Next, gas laws and gas equations. We are familiar with the two laws, that is Boyle's law and Charles' law. So first we are going to see about the basics of Boyle's law. This is simple thing that at constant temperature, the pressure of a given mass of gas is inversely proportional to its volume. P is nothing but the pressure and V is nothing but a volume at a constant temperature. So we can say it is inversely proportional. So that's what we are putting. P is inversely proportional to volume, which means a 1 by V. That's what we are telling, that is inversely proportional. So PV is equal to a constant. This is nothing but a Boyle's law. We should remember this form. And next we are going to see about Charles' law. In Charles' law, we know very well there are two forms of laws, which means laws of volume and law of pressure. Uh, in law of volume, the definition is nothing but at constant pressure, the volume of a given mass of gas is directly proportional to absolute temperature, which is nothing but V is directly proportional to T. V is nothing but a volume and it's proportional to temperature, which is denoted in capital T. And in laws of pressure, similarly we can say at constant volume, the pressure of a given mass of gas is directly proportional to its absolute temperature. Here also P is nothing but a pressure, T is nothing but a temperature. So we should remember this. Through this we can solve one gas equation. So this is very familiar equation. Also it is a very simple equation. So gas equation is relating the pressure, volume and temperature of a perfect gas, and which obeys both the Boyle's law and Charles' law. And we know very well that what is Boyle's law, which means pressure of a given mass of gas is inversely proportional to its volume. So here I place a formula, and both laws in Charles law, if you maintain the both laws, which is nothing but P is directly proportional to temperature, but it is inversely proportional to its volume. So if you want to put that is a PV is proportional to T, means P into V proportional T, just we make it into equal, then R is nothing but a proportional constant, which is nothing but a gas constant. So in a gas equation, we can say that capital R is nothing but gas constant, otherwise it is a proportional constant. So PV is equal to RT. We know we should know this because this is a basic value for a gas constant, that is 8.31 joule per mole per Kelvin. This is the absolutely basic value we should remember always to solve a problem. So here we are putting that it is PV is equal to N RT. N is nothing but number of moles you want to add it. Here if it is you are considering RT, means here we can say that it is 1 RT. If you may want to put 2, means that means the number of moles is nothing but 2. N is equal to 2. So this is a simple basic problem, and this is also known as perfect gas equation. So this is very basic, we should remember this. So through both Boyle's and Charles law, we derived this. So this is nothing but a perfect gas equation. And next now, humidity and relative humidity. We'll see that what it is humidity and relative humidity. See, when the air contains a large quantity of water vapor, it is said to be damp or moist or humid air. The water vapor that is present in the air called humidity. If it contains small quantity of water vapor, it is said to be dry. So there is a limit to the quantity of water vapor that the air can hold at a particular temperature. This is nothing but a humidity. So moisture, this is nothing but the humidity. So the evaporation of water is slow, invisible process that takes place from the surface of water at all temperatures. The vapor that is produced when water evaporates from the sea, tanks, rivers, etc., which is nothing but water vapor. This mixes with air. So next process we have explained that the air contains a large quantity of water vapors, then it is said to be damp, moist, humid air. So basic process is evaporation, then only we can say that it is humidity, then what is relative humidity. Okay, then comes to the what is relative humidity. Relative humidity is nothing but the ratio of the quantity of water vapor actually present in the air at a certain temperature to the maximum quantity of water vapor that the air can hold at the same temperature is called relative humidity. So by knowing the humidity of air, we can predict the weather condition also. So if the humidity low, means the air will be dry. Otherwise, if the humidity is very higher level, means that the air is very moisturous. So it consists large quantities of water vapor. So the humidity and the temperature of atmospheres are responsible for the formation of dew, mist, fog, clouds, rain, snow, and hail, etc. So these are all the basic things we should know, that what is humidity and relative humidity. Latent heat, just consider an example. If you are heating on solid, means its temperature increases, of course, till it becomes a liquid. It is observed that when a solid begins to melt on heating, so it does not produce any rise in the temperature of the substance, then the temperature becomes constant and the remains so till whole of the solid has melted. So the heat supplied during melting is used in the changed state. The heat which is used by a substance to change its state without any rise in temperature, which is nothing but latent or hidden heat. So the quantity of heat required to convert unit mass of the solid at its melting point completely into liquid at the same temperature, which is nothing but the specific latent heat of fusion. And also it is expressed in the terms of joule per kg. Okay, then we are going to see about fusion of ice and vaporization of a liquid and vaporization of steam in the form of specific latent heat. So the specific latent heat of fusion of ice, the specific latent heat of vaporization of a liquid, the specific latent heat of vaporization of steam. So first we are going to see about the specific latent heat of fusion of ice, which is nothing but the quantity of heat required to convert 1 kg of ice at 0 degrees Celsius completely into water at 0 degrees Celsius. The value of specific latent heat of fusion of ice is 3,36,000 joule per kg. So, the specific latent heat of vaporization of a liquid is the quantity of heat required to convert unit mass of a liquid at its boiling point completely into its vapor at the same temperature is nothing but the specific latent heat of vaporization of a liquid, and it is expressed in the form of a joule per kg. And next we are going to see about the specific latent heat of vaporization of steam, the quantity of heat required to convert 1 kg of water at 100 degrees Celsius completely into steam means at 100 degrees Celsius, which is nothing but the specific latent heat of vaporization of steam. So its value is 22,60,000 joule per kg. So these are all the basic things that we should know latent heat, and through this concept a specific latent heat of fusion of ice and also vaporization of a liquid and also vaporization of a steam. So these are all the basics we should remember all. Thank you for your attention. Kindly subscribe and like and share and comment in the comment box.